Our legal counsel, Charlie O'Hara, in this morning. 436-1212 is the number to call. Thanks, Charlie, for being here again today.
Sure.
Appreciate having you again. All right, we do have quite a few calls on the line for you today. Go ahead, caller.
Okay.
What is your question for Charlie this morning? Go ahead, caller. You're on the line. What's your question for us this morning?
My call is about a landlord-leasee question. My daughter was one of three who signed a contract for a year lease, but after about 6 months of living with the two other roommates, it became uncomfortable and unbearable for her to comfortably live with them. Moved out in December, which would have been about half of the year's lease. Then and kept her stuff still in the apartment. We continued to pay rent, but then in March decided that she was definitely not moving back to fulfill the July lease and stopped paying the rent. My gut tells me that we should be obligated to pay, the remaining 4 months, but if it was the other two roommates' choices to make it uncomfortable to where she couldn't live in there, is that our responsibility if they didn't even try to find other roommates to fulfill that subleasee?
I think it probably is. I mean, when you sign a lease, you're really responsible for it if you choose to move out because the people that you rented with are acting foolish, for lack of a better term. I think you still owe the rent. Now, usually people get together and try to work those things out, but if they can't do that, you probably owe the rent. They owe all the rent. You owe the rent. It's not a good situation, but you have to be careful who you move in with, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say you're still responsible for that.
Yes.
Okay. We do have another caller on the line. Go ahead, caller. What's your question for us this morning?
I'm wondering, do grandparents have any legal visitation rights that they can gain to see their grandchildren when the parents are denying them any access to them following a divorce between their parents?
Okay, there's actually a statute that covers this. What you'd have to do is you have to go to court and get in front of the judge, and the judge will make a determination as to whether the grandparents should have any visitation and how extensive that would be. So the best thing to do in that instance would be to get a hold of an attorney, tell them the situation. If the attorney thinks you have merit to file that motion, follow the advice of the attorney.
And you were saying during the break we were chatting that sometimes it could be limited visitation as well.
Well, it's going to be pretty limited because they're not the primary caregivers.
Right.
It's the parents, and if they're divorced, one parent's trying to get more visitation most of the time than the other, so there's a fight going on. But grandparents that are interested in their children, I think in this state, usually get to see their grandchildren.
Okay, thanks, Charlie. We do have one more caller on the line. Go ahead, caller. What's your question for us this morning?
Yes, ma'am. I hired an attorney a couple months ago for a couple of felony charges, and he hasn't got back to me at all. I have to call him to find out new court dates, and I was just wanting to know what's my options when, if I've already given him money and everything, what's my options regarding getting another lawyer or maybe a refund? And I'll just listen off the air.
Okay, well, the thing you got to do in that instance is try to make an appointment with your attorney, go in and see him personally and talk to him and try to work out the situation. Usually you can do that. If you can't do that, you can always switch an attorney and get a different attorney, and then you can send a letter to your attorney and ask for the refund if you're entitled to a refund. But again, like most of the things that you do, you usually sign a contract with your attorney. Whatever the terms of that contract dictate what monies you get back, so you may not get much money back. But if you don't think you're being represented correctly, the best thing to do is probably to switch attorneys if you can't talk to your attorney. But first, try to get along with them. See if you can get along with people.
Face to face.
If we can all get along with people, a lot of things would end quite well.
It would be a lot easier out there.
It would be easier for all of us.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Again, good seeing you here today.
Okay.